Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Life Forces podcast. I'm so glad to have you here with me. I wanted to share about eclipse season because it's happening now. Basically, we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces Sunday, September 7th, and then a solar eclipse in Virgo on September 21st. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those two today because eclipse season is always a thing. They're like, new and full moons on steroids. They're times of like karmic shifts. They're portals. I don't always love when people use the word portal, but honestly, that's what they are. There are a couple weeks, 2 times a year where things can seem heightened. Things can seem like they're shifting. The sand is, falling between our fingers. We can't get a grasp on things. But that's totally normal. So before we dive in, just whatever you're feeling right now is okay. Allow yourself to feel it. I think that is such an important thing, is to not resist what you're feeling, whatever it is, no matter how difficult it might feel to do so. And that's kind of a theme of these eclipses with the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. But before I get into more details, let's just go over what I want to share with you on this episode. So I guess I'll update you a little bit on the past month of my life, and then we're going to dig into this eclipse season, including 3 of my top tips to thrive through eclipse season. And then, before we dive in, I'm going to talk about sessions with me for the rest of the year and what that might look like, and whether or not it's a good time for you to join me in one. It probably is a good time if you're curious about it, or if you've already had one with me before. So let's dive into that. So I love working with people one-on-one. That's my specialty. And honestly, I just love taking, whatever you're going through and seeing it through the lens of mainly astrology, human design, but also other things that I've, studied extensively, like Kabbalah, also Ayurveda, other like bits and pieces of spiritual practices that I find helpful. And if any of you are following me on Instagram, which you should, at Life Forces Inc., because that's where I tend to share frequently because it's easier, especially with my 9-month-old now these days, just, when I get a minute in. I'm sharing mostly on Instagram at Life Forces Inc. And so I love taking whatever you got and seeing it through the lens of all the spiritual tools that I use. Oh, I wanted to say, sorry, brain fart here. I changed my bio on my Instagram just for funsies. And it now says spiritual tools for skeptical fools. And by fools, I don't mean like, I think you're stupid. I'm thinking it more like the Fool tarot card, which is just, new beginnings, fresh slate, like people who want to see things differently, have new kind of experiences. And I don't know, it's just kind of funny to use the word fool. But the point is, I say the word tool, and I use the word tool deliberately because it's like, I want everything I share to be useful. I don't love the kind of spirituality or astrology or human design that's like fluffy. I want it to be transmitted to you in a way that's like, oh, I can actually like use this in my life, and I can actually see how implementing these things is making my life better. That is what I love, and that is what I would love for you. And that's why I do what I do. So when I had that session with the numerologist earlier this year, it keeps coming back, honestly. It was in May, and she did say like that I'm here to shine a light on other people's paths, which I really feel strongly about, because I really feel like I'm good at helping people realign, reactivate to their purpose, to connect with it deeper, to stay on course or get back on track with all of that. And I really feel like I'm here to understand people. And I love getting to know like the nooks and the crannies of why people are the way they are, what motivates them, what challenges they face, and helping them alchemize all of that into like a life that they actually want to live. Because it's very easy to go on autopilot with things based on, I don't know, what we've been taught, what has been easier for us to do before, but it's not always what's going to get us where we want to go. And yeah, I feel like my specialties are getting you feeling clear and aligned in decision making. I love to demystify this concept of the intuition, which can seem very like foggy and confusing, but human design is something that really helps me hone in on how your specific intuition works. Again, life purpose, getting you back on track to living a life of meaning. And also with astrology, we can look at like what you can expect from the year ahead, the months ahead, whatever it is. And just understanding your unique energy blueprint and talents and which ones to really leverage to see positive changes in your life. Because it's much easier to just use what you have and appreciate what you have. It's very easy to compare yourself to other people and be like, oh, I should be more organized. I should be more outgoing. I should be more this and that. But if that's not really who you are naturally and in your essence, then it's going to make things more complicated to try to become those things if that's not really part of your essence. So anyway, I would love to connect with you one-on-one or in a relationship reading if you're interested in that. I love looking and comparing like other people's, like, you know, two people's astrology charts, seeing how your synastry is going, seeing how you relate to each other. That's a lot of fun for me too. So best way to book a session with me is I'm going to include links in the show notes, but otherwise you can DM me on Instagram at Life Forces Inc. if you're like not sure of what you need or like have some initial kind of questions. I'm happy to answer those. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of you soon. I'll have the most availability in the next couple of weeks. And then once my husband goes back to work, end of September, I will still make time for clients, but it just might be a little more sporadic. We'll have to see how that goes. That's a whole thing. But anyway, some life updates. So I'm back on the island with my little family, husband and daughter, and we're back to doing everything ourselves except for some support via food from this really nice old lady who brings us food sometimes. So that's, oh, okay. Siri just popped up and when I said sometimes it pulled up sometimes 1999 single by Britney Spears. That's a great song. Maybe I need to listen to it. Maybe that's a divine message or something. Okay. I'm going to not touch my keyboard at all because that seems to be what made Siri pop up. Anyway, so back to doing it all ourselves with some support. And with that, I've had a new level of releasing perfectionism, which is very Virgo, which is very, very, very in keeping with this eclipse season, because the North and South nodes, which have to do with eclipses, they have been in Pisces and Virgo respectively since January of this year, and they will be there until July 26th of next year. So our main kind of theme is like we're letting go of the Virgo stuff that's not serving us and we're moving towards the Pisces stuff that we need to integrate. So some of the Virgo stuff that's not always so helpful is things like perfectionism, being really nitpicky, having things needing to go a certain way, etc. Whereas Pisces is more about like letting go, seeing the bigger picture, and surrendering. So I've had to do a lot of surrendering because before I had a baby in my life, I was very much like, okay, my mornings need to go this way. I need to wake up. I need to meditate. I need to go on my little walk. I need to eat this and that. I need to exercise, da, da, da. My mornings would stretch out to like 2 or 3 hours before I could do anything. That is just not possible anymore. It's just not possible anymore with a human that needs me at all hours of the day and night. So I have really had to let go to things happening at a certain time, to checking all my stuff off the to-do list and, you know, on a certain timeline. It's just not so possible anymore. So I've been really already thinking about releasing perfectionism in this Virgo season and affirming to myself that I'm never going to have the perfect day or perfect schedule, which for me actually is very good to lean into, because in my human design, I'm something called passive brain, which if you've ever seen a human design chart, there's the 4 arrows at the top of the chart. The top left one, if it points to the right, you have passive brain. And if it points to the left, you have active brain. And for active brain people, if your arrow's pointing to the left, it's good for you to have more like structure and schedules and doing things at certain times. But for me, my husband and my daughter, we all have passive brain. So it is better for us to just kind of like flow with the day. Like, of course, you know, some things have to be scheduled, but like, for example, my daughter does not have like a nap at a certain time each day. It's really just like when she's tired, we go to sleep. She goes to sleep and I help her go to sleep kind of vibe. Not like, okay, it's 11 a.m. time for nap number 1 or whatever. It's just, I know that's not going to work for her because I've seen it in her chart and I've seen in practice that, okay, that's the way she is. I'm not going to force it. And same thing with eating. Like, obviously breastfeeding on demand is a whole other thing, but now that she's starting to eat foods, I'm like, okay, I know she's going to be a bit more of like a snacker, grazer kind of person. And me and my husband are also like that too, where like we don't necessarily have like 3 big meals a day. It's more like, you know, when we're hungry, we eat and stuff like that. Anyway, that's a little human design side note. One thing that's been really helping me is like saying these little affirmations to myself. So for example, when I'm leaving the house for the first time and it feels like it's too late in the day or whatever, and I'm just like, you know, in the mind about it, just spiraling a little bit, I just tell myself, I'm leaving the house at the perfect time. You know, in this situation, I'm recording the podcast at the perfect time. I'm exercising at the perfect time. My daughter's going down for her nap at the perfect time. So maybe this is like divine timing or whatever. For me, the word perfect is resonant because, you know, even though we can never achieve that, like that is often what's at the back of my mind. So like, I don't know, perfect is maybe a very charged word for people, but it works for me right now. But anyway, let's get into eclipse season. Why not? So we always have 2 eclipse seasons per year. So the last one we had this year was in March 2025. March 13th, 14th, we had a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. And March 28th, 29th, we had a new moon solar eclipse in Aries. So that solar eclipse in Aries was the end of the Libra Aries series of eclipses because the eclipses have to do with the lunar nodes, which are always in opposite signs. So Aries is opposite Libra. Aries is more about the individual. Libra is more about the other. So I feel like those past like 18 months of that series was very much about like stepping into our own boldness and letting go of people pleasing and thinking too much about other people. For example, that was one of the themes. So we had that eclipse season in March, and we had this new glimpse into the Virgo Pisces series. But also last September, we had a lunar eclipse in Pisces, which is what we're experiencing now, Sunday, September 7th. So last September, there was also a lunar eclipse in Pisces. So maybe you can even go all the way back to last year and think about like what was going on for you. Were there any like endings and beginnings? Because I really consider eclipse season to be very much like an Ouroboros. It's like the beginning leading into the ending, leading into a new beginning. So think back to September and what was going on, because some similar themes might reemerge. And so essentially we've had this nodal shift, the shift of the north and south node. It started this January 12th, and it will last till July 26, 2026. So we have this 18 months of these themes of moving towards Pisces and leaving behind some of the Virgo stuff that's not serving us. So this lunar eclipse in Pisces, Sunday, September 7th, to be precise, at 8:08 p.m. Central European Time, 2:08 p.m. Eastern. And if you're in Greece, Eastern Europe, some parts of Africa, that's 9:08 p.m. So it's time for us to lean into letting go, compassion, empathy, interconnectedness, spirituality, and the bigger picture, all these Pisces themes. I would also invite you to pay extra attention to your dreams. And I came across this really funny meme the other day in someone's stories, and it has these two cats. And on one side it says born to dilly dally, and on the other side it says forced to lock in. And this is very much a born to dilly dally kind of lunar eclipse. It's not time to lock in. I wouldn't say it's time to lock in at all in eclipse season. It's really time to like just be open to what changes are happening, observe, maybe process through writing. Mercury is very present in this lunar eclipse, so that would be a good idea, especially for around this time, this weekend and a bit beyond. It's more of a dilly-dally kind of eclipse because it's a lunar eclipse in Pisces, so it's ruled by fuzzy, transcendent Neptune. I'll also talk about some of the transits going on for some extra context. What's really notable about this one is we have 3 outer planets sextiling and trining each other. So Uranus and Pluto are exactly trining each other, which is a nice harmonious configuration. Pluto's in the first degree of Aquarius and Uranus is in the first degree of Gemini. They're both retrograde. So it's a really good time to reflect on the kind of changes and transformations that have been happening, not only in your own life, but especially collectively. And then that's in a configuration with Saturn and Neptune. So Pluto is sextiling Saturn and Neptune, and then separately Uranus is sextiling those. So it's just like a lot of collective stuff. Like, how are we shifting? And also Saturn is back in Pisces. So, because it's retrograde. So it's like, what lessons from like last year, for example, do we need to integrate? Like, what kind of boundaries, especially when it comes to like spirituality or emotions, do we maybe need to look at again? There might be some interesting things coming up, but definitely pay attention to your dreams. And then also, I mean, we still are in Virgo season. So just really like be observant of where you're at. Although it's not a time to lock in, it's a great time to verbally process things. So whether that's like journaling, talking to someone, just like see where you're at, like spend some time checking in with yourself. I think that would be really valuable for most of us. And then this Virgo Pisces axis, both signs are about service. And especially for this lunar eclipse, where the kind of focus is really on these outer planets, which are about like the collective, where we're at, in terms of humanity. So think about where you can be of service for the greater good, and how is, you aligning to your most optimal self, because Virgo can very much be about that, like improving things, right? So how can your most optimal self better serve others, right? And again, because it's eclipse season, it's not necessarily the time to like take specific action and like do something completely new. I would wait a few weeks for that, but just see what this weekend and beyond is revealing to you. I think that's maybe all I want to say about that lunar eclipse. Let's quickly look at the solar eclipse in Virgo happening later this month. So you're going to be well prepared for that. And then I will give you my 3 eclipse season tips. Keeping this short, sweet, digestible for all of you. Okay, so now looking at this solar eclipse in Virgo. There we go. What's really interesting about it is it's at the 29th degree of Virgo. So it's right at the end of Virgo season, right before we shift into Libra season. Again, Mercury is very close to the sun and the moon, but Mercury will be in Libra by the solar eclipse in Virgo on the 21st. So still a good time to really like mentally process things. What's really interesting is we have, if we look at the chart of this eclipse, there's a very special aspect pattern. So like literally a pattern with all the lines that, the planets are configured in, called a kite. So we have the sun and moon opposing Saturn, which is very interesting. So this is a more lock-in kind of eclipse. Because there's more Virgo stuff going on, because it's the end of Virgo season, whatever, but especially because of this opposition with Saturn. So it's really like, what are you trying to build? What boundaries do you need to cultivate? What fears do you need to get over? The interesting thing, though, is Saturn and Neptune are very close together. They're kind of in the same, basically the same closeness as they are, even a little closer as they are in this lunar eclipse in Pisces. They're very close together, and this is going to be a signature of like later this year into next, of this fusion of Saturn and Neptune. So like where like institution meets spirituality, where structure meets openness and flow. That's going to be really interesting. That's going to be a really interesting collective shift. So both of these eclipses are colored by that as well. So there is still a dreaminess to this solar eclipse, but there is a kind of stronger Saturnian influence, I would say. And still we've got that, you know, those sextiles and trines with these outer planets, with Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. It's just that, and I guess also because now the sun is in a later degree of Virgo, then like that's trining Pluto and Uranus. So there's just a lot going on with this Virgo solar eclipse. What else do I want to say about this? I think it's going to be a very interesting time. We're going to see some stuff coming out. Yeah, some interesting things. Yeah, we'll see what's revealed. I feel like always during eclipse season, stuff comes out collectively. But especially with these strong collective energies, I'm curious to see what specifically will happen. And I mean, we're just in such a time where things feel so new and different and maybe accelerated, especially because both Uranus and Pluto are now in air signs rather than earth signs. So it's like there's more of a speed, like things feel like they might be speeding up and progressing faster than they have in a little while. And then also with like Neptune in Aries, and Saturn was just in Aries and we'll get back there, you know, soon. There's more of this like, yeah, fire and air energy, which is definitely more quick moving, you know, maybe sometimes a little too quick, right? So let's use the fact that we're still in Virgo season to remember to ground ourselves. That's super important during eclipse season, as all these changes might be occurring, right? To stay grounded in whatever way we can. Yeah, for me, where we live is often super windy. And if you're at all familiar with Ayurveda, like wind air energy is very vata, which can be destabilizing. So we need to like ground using the other elements of pitta and kapha, which are more warming and grounded respectfully. So it's like, I mean, it's still the summer, so I'm quite warm, but it's more about the grounding. So even though I wanted a nice breeze through the house, and we've normally kept the windows open even when it's super windy, it's like, okay, while I'm recording this podcast, I'm going to close the window so I can feel a little more like present, even if I'm kind of warm. Anyway, so that's what I want to say about these eclipses. They're very, very much about the collective. They're very much about processing what's going on in our own individual lives. And of course, it's always the most useful and helpful to look at where Virgo and Pisces is in your chart. In my chart, Pisces is my first house and Virgo is my seventh house. So I've noticed a lot of the themes being like, you know, self and other for me. So like leaning into myself and my new relationship to self for sure. And it's very funny because for me, like this nodal shift has very much corresponded with me becoming a mom. So it's like figuring out this new person that I am. Like I'm still very much me who I was before, but just different responsibilities and just different ways of moving through life, and seeing how things have come up in my relationship with my husband, especially, right? Like 7th house is one-on-one relationship. So if you're interested in that, highly encourage you to book a session with me, because then we can look at where things are hitting your chart and I can give you more like personalized advice. But let me give you some 3, to be precise, eclipse season tips that are super, super helpful. So the first one is ditch the rituals. So a lot of people love to do their like new moon and full moon practices like throughout the year. Like, I don't know, whether it's manifestation, whatever, I don't know, burning things, whatever floats your boat. Because the energy of eclipses is very unstable, I don't recommend doing rituals. I even tell people like it's maybe not the best time to like look at your tarot cards and stuff like that. Do what you feel is right, but I would just say opt for not engaging in any of that for the next few weeks, because the energy is not super stable. The next thing is to embrace beginnings and endings. So as I kind of mentioned before, eclipses are like the Ouroboros, right? They're about simultaneous beginnings and endings blending into each other. And this is because of the South Node, which is very much about karmic endings, and the North Node about, karmic beginnings, or what we're meant to move towards. So it's like, as we learn to integrate our South Node lessons, so South Node in Virgo, okay, what can we take from Virgo and what do we need to leave behind? We can further embrace what the North Node wants to show us. So North Node is currently in Pisces. Where do we need to cultivate more empathy, a better relationship with our emotions, a better understanding of the collective and how we can best serve the collective. And then my third tip is to be open and observe. Eclipse season is not a time to force anything or expect something in particular to happen. So I really recommend you just sit back and see what you're being led to, especially as it relates to the areas of the transformation based on where Pisces especially, but also Virgo is hitting your chart. So like what 2 houses are being affected in your chart, which is something I can help you take a look at in a session. So my loves, that's all I've got for you today. This is a nice, like less than half hour episode. I really, really hope that it serves you. And if you enjoyed this, please share it on your Instagram stories, text it to a homie that you think will really enjoy it. And of course, I would love to see you in a session. You can DM me with any questions about this episode or about working with me at lifeforcesinc.com. And I'll see you soon. Lots of love. Happy eclipse season.